What's up, everybody? Welcome to Something Awesome, a podcast that likes to live on the corner of nostalgia and new. I'm here, as always, with Rick, and we got a studio audience today. My son is over in the corner, not making any noise because he's a good audience member. Before we get into our topic for this episode, we were doing like some sound test stuff, and we normally do this. We normally do this before every session of recording.
We just need our own mics.
Yes. So yeah, and like,
so we're looking to you, the viewers.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. Don't give a shit.
Well, so we're doing sound tests, and like, since my son was here, I was like, hey, sit down right here, and we'll do camera and sound tests. And so I was just asking him random questions, and I was like, oh man, we should totally have him on an episode of the show and talk about like the stuff he's into.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, when we were still doing the old podcast, he would ask like, can I come on and talk about Legos? And I'd be like, yeah, but you actually have to bring your stuff and show us everything and talk about it.
Show and tell.
And you got to be on camera. And he was like, oh, never mind. And then, so now that he's getting older, maybe sometime in the next season or something, we can have him on to talk about the stuff he's into.
Yeah.
That would be kind of fun.
If you want to.
Yeah, if you want to. You don't have to.
No pressure.
But you have to bring props.
But you will have to bring props.
Yeah.
PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
I have plenty of things to bring.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. But yeah, I just thought that was funny to bring up because he was over here just talking into the microphone and looking at the camera and stuff, and like I was watching him.
It's comfortable.
I was watching him, and it cracks me up because I'm doing it right now, and this is what I'm bringing up. He talks with his hands, and so do I. So if you watch our videos, which don't do it, just listen to us on podcasts. I do a lot of hand movements and gestures, and I'm kind of, very showy with the way I talk. And he was talking about his Legos, and he was like, it was very entertaining. It was cracking me up. It was cracking me up for sure. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today, we're here to talk about our.
Can I bring something up real quick?
Yeah.
Like, because you were talking about this in the car, and I don't know if this is going to be maybe its own separate thing for when it comes out.
Okay.
The Blink-182 song?
Oh,
should we wait until the album comes out next month, right?
I think it's next month. We'll talk about that but that song, man. It's like,
because I really kind of wanted to talk about it, but I know that we could go on forever with that.
Yeah.
So like,
I think we should hold on to it.
This is a little tease for your next episode.
What's it called? One More Time is the name of the song.
Yeah.
If you are around our age and you grew up with Blink,
Dude Ranch,
Cheshire Cat, Dude Ranch, Enema of the State, all those albums. Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. Is that okay?
Pants and Jacket.
If you like
self-titled,
yeah, and then even the stuff without Tom DeLonge, I know you and I are both big fans of as well. The Matt Skiba era. We're both California and the Deluxe, and they did another album. I think it was just a number. I think it was. I don't remember.
I don't know what it's called.
But yeah, you and I are both big fans of Alkaline Trio, also. So I think that's why we liked it so much. But now that Tom DeLonge is back and they're doing stuff again, it makes me very happy, and I hope that I hope that Tom is in a place where he's happy, because it seems like anytime he leaves, he's not in a good place. And they joke about it in the song, and it's a very emotional song. It's like, so what? We're only cool when something tragic happens. Like, I hope that's not the case.
It's an emotional song.
It is.
Check it out.
Especially if you've been a fan for a long time. It's definitely one of those songs where you're like, why am I feeling like this after you listen to it?
Yeah, especially when you watch the video too.
Yeah.
We'll get into it.
Yeah, it's called One More Time by Blink-182. Go check it out. They put out an awesome video for it. And the other song is, I think it's called More Than You Know or something like that. Yeah, it's really good too. But anyway, yeah, that Blink song is, woo! Man, that's a good one.
The reason we are here today.
Yes. Is we are going to talk about our favorite, I won't even say our favorite books. I don't know if that's how you want to label it. Our favorite.
My favorite books?
Yeah.
I for myself.
These are some of my favorite books.
But yeah, they're not like.
We'd be here for hours if we made a list of like our actual definitive favorite books. These are our favorite books at the time we made these lists.
Yeah. Do graphic novels count? I totally forgot to ask you that.
I'll allow it. I don't know. I don't care. I mean, Why
That
wouldn't
changes
they?
everything.
I didn't use that criteria, but I guarantee
I didn't
you,
ask that one time either. But
I guarantee
I'm fine
you-
with my list.
I would put Why the Last Man in here if that was definitely the criteria.
Well, graphic novels is its own genre in itself, so if that's something else
I
you could do.
guess so. I don't really think so. I think
Yeah, because books don't have pictures.
some of them do.
I mean, yeah, but they're not.
But they're not integral to the story. I
Yeah.
hear you. Yeah. But yeah. I feel like graphic novel was like a bougie way of saying comic books. I don't really feel like it was. I know they used it for a specific subset.
I mean, technically, I call them trades.
Right, but when they started calling them graphic novels, they were using that more as like these are the more serious adult books. These are the more
acceptable term in order to read comic books.
Right. Yeah. I would have counted it. I would have been okay with that, but that's not the criteria I used.
Yeah, I didn't either.
So usually when we make lists like this, if you've listened or watched or listened to any of our old podcasts, you know that I love making lists. And Rick really likes the exercise of making lists.
Yeah.
Our other co-host at the time, Bryce, hated making lists, which was always fun to make him do lists.
Literally, I kind of been pulling a him right now with this list.
Yeah. So normally what I do is I force myself to choose. I have a list I have brewing right now of I'm finally getting down to really making my favorite video games of the PS3 generation list, because I think we're far enough removed now to actually make that. And I forced myself because if I didn't force myself to pick, it would be like The Last of Us, Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, and it would be a bunch of games all by Naughty. It would be like the 5 Naughty Dog games that were made over the PS3 generation. But I forced myself to pick. So on my list, I won't use anything that's on my list, but let's just say for argument's sake, let's go back to PS1 era. And it's Tony Hawk 1 and Tony Hawk 2. Both of those games would be in my top 5, but I would force myself to pick one to put in, because I wouldn't want my list to consist of Tony Hawk 1, Tony Hawk 2, Silent Hill, Resident Evil 1 and 2.
And that's kind of how I went about it too.
Right. So
especially with the books.
This time though, I cheated. And there are a couple numbers on my list that are a series of books, because when I tried to pick one book out of the series, I was like, I can't. It's a altogether whole story arc. There's no way.
Yeah, that was tough for me too, even with these bunch of different books that I've read in the last few years, and some that come with multiple different books.
Right.
It's hard to pick just one. I managed to do it.
I didn't. I tried. I really tried.
At the same time, I'm still kind of but I like this one more. But this one's
yes.
It's hard, but I did it.
Because it would be I'll get to it when we talk about a couple on my list where I would be well, technically the first one I read maybe would be my favorite, but it's not the best one. I don't know. So I waffled on it and I kind of cheated and I put some series in my top 5. So sue me. It's our show. It's my list. Get out of here if you don't like it. Yes.
And be sure, as YouTubers like to say, let us know what your lists are down below.
Yeah, and if you don't like my list, let me know. Because I'm the one that reads and answers the comments.
Honorable mentions first, or do that as last?
Yeah, we can do that first. Yeah, we'll do that first.
So I did top 5, and then I have some honorable mentions. I'll go ahead and just list the 3 honorable mentions I have straight up. I wouldn't say they're in particular order. Right. More just kind of my favorites. So the first one is No Place to Hide.
Okay.
Which is the book about Edward Snowden.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
Fantastic. I love it. It's really good. Goes deep into what he went through, the things that he found, and then also the I'm forgetting his name. The reporter that he talks to is also kind of not able to get back into the United States as well too. Oh, wow, I'm totally forgetting his name. But yeah, it goes into that whole story on how it led up to him being the most, that whistleblower, most wanted man. So that's on my list. My next one is Springfield Confidential, which was really hard to put that as an honorable and not on my list.
Wow, okay.
Springfield Confidential is basically a book about The Simpsons.
I never read
the writers, the directors, the creators, It gives you an insight into the writer's room. It tells you what episodes inspired certain stories, and it even answers the question if they're actually time travelers or not because of how much they predicted the future. And they answer it in the best way, of course. It's a fantastic book if you're a huge Simpsons fan.
So
otherwise, you wouldn't. Why would you read it?
Before you move on, I want to bring up the fact that Rick is a big audiobook guy. Are these both books you listen to the audiobook of?
It's an audiobook.
Who reads? Is it the cast and writers that read the Simpsons book, or do they have?
I think it's one of the. I could actually find out right now, but I'm pretty sure it's the one of the writers from the Simpsons.
Very cool. Very cool.
I'm forgetting his name, and I should know his name, but yeah, it's one of the writers.
Okay. Yeah, it's not that important. I was just wondering if it was like, the writers or the voice actors.
Mike Reese.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's fantastic. It talks about, how the writer's room worked, like the insides of it, like how they came up with jokes, and it's really detailed and also extremely funny.
Right.
Like, it's funny. That's why I would actually recommend the audiobook, because you could hear straight from the writers.
That's cool.
Which I really like a lot.
That's definitely something I would consider reading.
Because they're also, like, the jokes that they make too. Like, you can hear the sarcasm and the deadpan in their voice when they're also saying these jokes. Like, yes, like, we are absolutely murderers, like, it's funny. But yeah, highly recommend it. I even told Dan Herman to give it a read.
Okay.
Too. I don't know if he ever did, but
Dan, I'm sure he did.
I'm sure
Dan
loves to read.
Yeah. Well, he also loves the
Simpsons. But yeah, that was another one on my list, and then another one that's on my list too. And this was also the first book I read by. Hold on, I get them confused.
Okay.
And I want to get this right, because if I don't get this right, I'm an idiot. John Green.
Okay.
Yeah, John Green. This is the first book I read of John Green, which is Turtles All the Way Down, which a lot of people like, but also they say is not his best work. I liked it a lot. It had to do with, like, there's a mystery, Yeah. And Turtles All the Way Down is a metaphor to, like, oh, what do you think is, like, at the edge of the other earth? Like, just turtles all the way down. Like,
so those are your three honorable
mentions?
Those are my 3
honorable mentions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have 5 honorable mentions because I had a list of like 25 books that ended up whittling down to 10, and then I ordered them all. So this kind of is a top 10 list, I guess you would say, because it's a very particular order. So the first one would be the 10th book on my list, and it's called Insignia by S.J. Kincaid, and it's kind of a Ender's Game meets Ready Player One kind of story about a kid who's really good at like games, and in the future they live in, they're all like VR, and he gets taken to a Hogwarts-like school to help with this military shit. It's really cool. It's really cool. It's like Ender's Game and Ready Player One.
I was gonna say, like, that sounds kind of like
yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. So it's very, very, very cool. The next one on my list is 8-Bit Christmas by Kevin Jacobkowski. That's the name. Which was recently made into a movie, which is fantastic with Neil Patrick Harris in it. And it was on HBO Max, I believe. I'm sure it's still there. But the book is fantastic. It's about a kid who lives in rural Ohio when the NES is the big thing in 1985, and he's trying to get an NES, and his town has banned the Nintendo Entertainment System because of an incident that happens with one of the kids, and it's his mad quest to get an NES system for Christmas. And it's really freaking good. It's really good. There's a lot of stuff in the movie that they take out or that they've taken completely out that's in the book. Like, there's a whole subplot where he's an elementary school age kid, but he's in love with his teacher. It's like a whole subplot. I don't know. Did anybody else have a teacher that they had a crush on when they were a kid? I'm sure we had a substitute teacher that had a crush on when I was a kid.
Your science teachers.
Yeah. So there's a whole like subplot that's completely removed from the movie that's in the book about his infatuation with his teacher, and it's really good. I really, really enjoyed the movie, but I would say read the book because it's got so much more depth.
8-Bit Christmas?
8-Bit Christmas, yeah. It's
Yeah, I'm
fantastic.
actually writing this down.
Number 7 is actually Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I didn't read that book until I was in my late 20s. Shit, man. And I had completely been able to stay away from it being spoiled for me, which is insane, I guess, because it's been out for so long. And I happened to read it at the time. After I was done reading it, I found out they were making that movie with Asa Butterfield. And,
Yeah. I remember you were really all into the Ender's Game.
It's a really, really good book. And, like, some of the technology in that book is so ahead of its time because they're basically talking about iPads and tablet computers in this book. And it's a great book. It's a Harry Potter-ish take where a kid is recruited to a military installation where they're using games and different forms of entertainment to control a war. And then there's some really deep shit later where they find out the true nature of what the kids find out the true nature of what they're doing. And it's a really good book. And Jeff Kanata is the friend of the show. Jeff Kanata, yeah, right. I wish he was the one that talked about Ender's Game a lot and got me to actually purchase it and read it. And I remember having like even a Twitter conversation with him where I asked him, I was like, "Hey,
I mean, technically, yeah, you had this whole Twitter interaction."
Yeah, I go, "Hey, man, I just got done reading Ender's Game for the first time, and I'm in my late 20s. Are any of the other books in the series any good?" And he said, "Yeah, the first book in a second series, and I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's from the other side of one of the kids. It's from one of the other kids' perspectives that's in the school at the same time with Ender, and he said it's really, really good. But other than that, the rest of them aren't as good as the.
That's his name, Ender.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a great book. I'll move on. Speaking of friend of the show, Jeff Kanata, Traveling in Space by Stephen Paul Leva. And the audiobook is read by Jeff Kanata.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic, the audiobook. He does like 200 different voices for a bunch of different characters, big and small. It's a first contact novel written from the alien's perspective and not from the Earthling's perspective. And it's really, really fucking good. I won't give any more away than the basic plotline. It's a first contact novel from the alien's perspective. I remember you telling me, like, oh, you need to get this, this. Like, Jeff does a really good job. Fantastic job.
Doing voices in this. And, like, yeah, that just slipped through the cracks, and I haven't got it yet. I will. I think I need to.
And this next one is number 6, and it's an honorable mention, I guess. And I guess I gave myself stupid parameters. I didn't want... It's not technically a series, but it's by an author that's in my top 5, and I didn't want any books by the same author in the top 5 that aren't part of a series, that are a cohesive story. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So it's Armada by Ernest Cline. Oh. And when I read that book, I was like, I feel like this book was written for me and me only. And it is a fantastic book. And it references a lot of shit that only I reference from growing up in the 80s and 90s.
It's another book I remember you talking about.
It's so fucking good, man. It's so good. It was one of these books that got delayed for a long time. And I think because he posted about it being done for like 2 years before it actually got published. And I think it's because he was trying to sell the publishing rights and the movie rights at the same time. I think that was a thing. And then one of his other books, Ready Player One, ended up getting made into a movie. But Armada, I feel like, was written for an audience of one, and that audience is this guy right here. So those are my honorable mentions. Again, real quick,
they're good.
Yeah. Insignia by S.J. Kincaid. 8-Bit Christmas by Kevin Jacobowski. God, that's a fucking name. Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Traveling in Space by Stephen Paul Leva. And Armada by Ernest Cline. I wholeheartedly recommend all 5 of those books to anybody. They're not all. There's a few of them on here that are kind of similar, but I really feel like Traveling in Space is one that people should really, really give a chance because it's such a cool story and a cool take on a first contact story.
Cool. So let's go ahead and get into our top 5. Then.
Yeah.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
All right. So my number 5 book is Gone Girl by Gillian
Ooh,
Flynn.
I knew that was gonna be on here. Yeah.
Yeah. The audiobook is the best way, in my opinion, to read this book because you get not only the voice for the husband, but you also get the transition to the voice. You get 2 voice actors basically,
Right.
The husband and the wife in this.
That's pretty cool.
And it jumps in time between the two, so you don't like the husband's talking about this, and it's it's like there is a movie about it, and it's kind of like they kind of pace it similar, but with the movie they kind of put husband first and then wife, and here it's like 2 chapters is the husband going through like oh, what is my wife thinking, what is this, and then it's the wife's perspective of that time of what she's thinking and what she's doing. The book is very detailed. It's very well acted too. Yeah. Because it is 2 different people that are bouncing off each other.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't really talk about what it's about. I just figured most people already know because it's a movie. But yeah, Amy Dunn basically,
Whoa, full spoilers
here.
here.
Oh, damn, spoiler alert. It's been years since it's been out.
Damn.
And whatever.
This guy, right?
But you don't know that, you just think because the husband thinks.
Well, now they do.
I mean, yeah. That first they think she's been murdered, and then she's missing, so they don't really know, which one's which. But you get both perspectives on, her. You think the entire time when it's the husband, oh my God, I guess that is a big twist. Is that she, and she's trying to get him in trouble. Right. But yeah, the story is just fantastic. I think the storytelling and the way it's acted out in this audiobook is fantastic.
That's cool.
Reading it, I think would have been just as fine too. You could make up your own voices, but the actors in this were really, really, their voice narrators were really good. But yeah, that's my number 5. I highly recommend anyone to read this, even if you've already seen the movie.
Very cool, man. Well, maybe I would have read it if I just didn't have it spoiled for me
live
on air.
You haven't watched the movie?
Nah. I'm just kidding. It still seems like a very interesting read. All right, my number 5 was also made into a movie. And my number 5 is The Martian by Andy Weir.
Okay.
I read the book. So I hate, I'm going to do this, but it's going to make me sound like fucking hipster guy that I hate sounding like. But I remember hearing about this book on, Adam Savage was doing a podcast on tested.com with, Will Smith and Norman Chan after Adam Savage had bought Tested. And he was like, I'm reading this really good book. This author, his name is Andy Weir. It's called The Martian. It's fantastic. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. He gave the basic plot. It's about an astronaut that gets stranded on Mars and he has to survive a certain amount of time so they can come get him. And I was like, this sounds really cool. And I got it for $1.99 because it was a self-published Kindle single by Andy Weir at the time. Yeah. And so it didn't have a major publishing deal. And I really feel like Adam Savage talked about that book so much and his, ties he has with quote unquote entertainment industry in Hollywood. I really feel like that's what got that book picked up by a publisher and made into a movie because Adam Savage would not stop talking about The Martian for a year straight before it was actually bought by a publisher and before the movie rights were actually bought. Yeah. And it's one of the quickest turnarounds I've ever seen. From
Ridley Scott,
released by a major publisher, movie rights, movie release. It was boom, 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 just so quick. And the movie is fantastic, and
one of my favorite movies.
It's one of the truest adaptations from book to film, with the exception of something they changed at the end, which I'm okay with. But whatever.
With it.
I'm okay with it. but I wish they would have just kept.
They give it more of that Hollywood movie ending.
Yeah, and I do like they kept in like, but Iron Man.
The Iron Man.
Yeah, the Iron Man line is so good. Everything in it is like they stay really true. Even like email correspondence between his crew and him.
Yeah.
They keep it really true, even to the joke where one of the guys is writing it, but writing it as the female on the crew, and then you find out like it's really well written, both in book and in the screenplay, and it's really well acted in the movie. But we're not here to talk about the movie.
I actually got the audiobook of that, so like I didn't read it, I listened to it.
Yeah.
And again, the narrator does a fantastic job. With the way, you know, the sorry, I'm kind of taking over, but
no, it's fine. It's fine.
The way the book like reads, because like it's funny,
yeah,
but and it's serious, and like again like Audible and the narrators just do a really good job of it.
There's a couple. There's maybe 2 other books on this list I'm gonna say this about, but the way I read this book initially was I read it all the way through as like a Kindle single or whatever, and then when it got published and they had the audiobook, they upgraded my book to the published version of the book, and then I could add on the audio narration for like $2 or whatever. So of course I did it. And the way I read this book now is I read a few chapters and then I listen to those few chapters, and then I read a few chapters and then I listen to those chapters. And it's like, it is the coolest way to be able to interact with the form of media, because I always say like when you're reading, it stimulates both sides of your brain, because your analytical side is taking in what you're reading and your artistic side is showing you all the visions in your head. But when you listen to an audiobook, you're able to shut off that analytical side and just let the artistic side of your brain really flood you. Your imagination run wild. Yeah. So reading it a few chapters at a time and then listening to it a few chapters at a time is my favorite way to consume this book now. And it's a book I've read several times. So that's my number 5, The Martian by Andy Weir.
I thought that would be a lot higher.
I thought so too at first. But yeah, another book of his almost made it onto my
you gotta finish
list.
it. I haven't finished it.
Oh, so good. Artemis?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
I haven't finished it.
I have Hail Mary also, which is his newest book. I haven't read that yet either, though.
What's that one about?
Don't know. I haven't read it yet.
Oh.
But yeah, number 5, The Martian by Andy Weir. Fantastic author, by the way.
My number 4, which you might probably say the same thing about what I just told you, is Off to Be the Wizard.
Oh, yeah.
Off to Be the Wizard. You introduced me to this fucking series.
Yes.
And it's absolutely fantastic. Anyone in our age range would love this. It doesn't even matter. You could be any age.
Yeah.
You know, this book is just fantastic.
Yeah.
It's this person who basically, this kid?
Adult.
Early
20s.
Yeah, early 20s. Who basically finds the code for life,
yeah.
right?
He finds out that
the binary code for
the universe is governed by a binary code that
Yeah.
you can alter and change as you wish.
Yeah, you could tweak it to however you want,
Yeah.
and you know, travel through time basically.
Written by Scott Meyer.
Yeah, Scott Meyer. Yeah, I should probably definitely name the author. But yeah, like it was hard because there's multiple books in this series.
Mm-hmm.
You know, on this one, and I think the third one is definitely a good one too. Is the third one the one where they're
on a welcome quest?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And the third one I really like as well too.
Mm-hmm.
But the first one, because it started it off.
Yeah.
Like I love this first one, especially with how he's being chased, you know, by the police government people.
It's essentially it's the IRS.
Yeah, the
IRS.
IRS.
At the beginning. He does some dumb shit and he puts way too much money in his bank account, and people.
The IRS finds out.
Yes,
they always find out.
Right.
So
what he does is he sets up a failsafe where he's like, okay, if I ever get in trouble or if I ever get found out, I've got this button on my phone I can push, and it'll take me to a place where I can get by with the things I know about. I don't want to say, I'm gonna be a little quiet about it, but
no, that's fine. Like,
so it takes him to a time in the past,
medieval times
where he could be a wizard
and get magic
because he's magic.
Yeah,
and he has a very rude awakening when he gets there.
Yeah,
because he eventually has to hit this panic button.
Yeah, which probably just stop there because like I recommend anyone who loves adventure fantasy to read this. Technology, especially references to
nostalgia,
pop culture.
Yeah, pop culture references from all eras.
It's fantastic.
I am so glad that book is on your list because I remember telling you, got it, Rick. This is you. You gotta read.
Yeah,
that is something Rick would do.
Me about it. Like you gotta read this.
The premise of this book is the most Rick-ass thing I think I've ever seen in my life. Because
especially with the Simpsons references.
Right,
the person who does the Simpsons references.
And there's a character in the book who did the same thing as him and went back in time to this same time, but has no idea what the Simpsons are.
Yeah.
Because he came in the 60s or something like that.
Yeah. It's really good. And the way they expanded it with all these other books and just like how deeper it goes is just fantastic. Yeah. And I highly recommend read this. Off to Be the Wizard.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Actually, I had an email exchange with that writer after I read that first book because, again, it was a $1.99 Kindle single when I bought it. And I finished it and liked it so much that I was like, what else has this author done? And then I found like an email address on his website and I emailed and I was like, dude, this book is fantastic. And he actually responded and was like, funny that you mention it because I'm right in the middle of putting the finishing touches on the second book in the series. And I was like, oh my God. So yeah, it was really cool. Like, again, don't want to be hipster guy, but I'm going to be hipster guy.
It was cool.
Yeah. My number 4 books are books that are written by a writer named Douglas Richards. And it's 2 books that go together. One is called Amped and one is called Wired. And it's about this guy who meets this scientist who has found a way. If you heard this before, it's because they made a movie similar to this, and I feel like they just couldn't get the rights to this book. It's about a scientist who figures out a way to unlock the other 90% of the potential of your brain by taking a pill.
Limitless?
Yeah. No.
Is that what Limitless is about?
No, it's yes, sort of, but there's one. God damn it. Maybe it is just Limitless I'm thinking of, actually. Yeah, which one was Ultraviolet?
Ultraviolet. No, you're thinking of Lucy.
Okay, well maybe it's...
Ultraviolet was Resident Evil.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah, so
you're thinking Lucy with Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, which is similar kind of story,
it's similar,
right? Yeah. But Limitless is the one basically.
With the pill.
Yeah. And so what it does is it unlocks because they say you only use 10% of your brain's ability. Right, but the premise of this book is this scientist has found a way to unlock the rest of it. And by doing so, it basically gives you superpowers to a certain extent. And it's 2 books that are written extremely well, and they go like hand in hand with each other. Like I said, one's called Amped and one's called Wired. That's the broad general story arc. Super well written, and apparently this guy Douglas Richards is one of these like Patterson type of writers where he just fucking cranks out books all the time, and a lot of them are technological thrillers, and that's something I'm super into. So I've got a bunch of his books on Kindle. That there's another series called the Nick Hall series, which is a similar story of his that I could have made this list also. There's a couple books in that franchise, but yeah, if I was gonna narrow it down to books of his you got to read, it's Amped and Wired, and I believe they were in that order: Amped first and then Wired, and they're just fantastic books. It's really cool stories. I think I've really become a huge fan of techno thrillers. Like, it's really
makes
cool.
Sense.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
But yeah, like I said, broad story is there's this pill, and he ends up working for a government installation and trying to trick the government and using these powers, him and this female scientist, and they eventually fall in love, obviously, because why not?
Of course.
Which leads to a really cool twist in the second book, by the way. Well, so good.
There's 2 books only, right?
2 books, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, Amped and Wired by Douglas E. Richards. I don't want to say too much more. I think everybody should go check him out. I believe I have the audiobooks also. I've only listened to the audiobook of Amped and not Wired. I've only read Wired. But they're really well written and really well read. So go check those out. That's my number 4.
I remember seeing the cover for Wired.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never checked it out. Number 3.
Yes.
My number 3 is one you already mentioned, and it's The Martian.
Oh, nice.
I was hoping, maybe it's a little higher. But yeah, The Martian. Kind of already said everything I needed to be said about it. But yeah, again, like, it's just so well written, so well documented. The fact that the author,
Andy Weir.
Sorry,
Scott Meyer is a Magic Company.
Yeah,
Andy Weir.
Andy Weir.
Yeah.
Went into talked and consulted, from what I've heard, with actual astronauts,
and physicists, and all this stuff. NASA
like
people,
the people that he knew, like, to make sure he could get it as realistically as possible. And I've also watched like these, I don't know if it's Vogue YouTube videos where they like talk to an actual astronaut. Yeah. And he talks about, because he read the book too. He talks about the movie and how realistic the movie and the book are to what it is. And he's like of course he says like this takes place in the future. So like they're using also future jargon, but at the same time they're also using our current jargon, which is pretty accurate. But
I think
he said it's like one of the most accurate space movies you've seen.
Yeah, I waited because I figured this would be on your list also, because this is a book you and I talked a lot about. There's a couple of different astronauts and scientists and NASA people that they've talked to about this book, and somebody said that even given our current technology limitations, when the book came out like about almost 10 years ago, even given our current technology limitations, a good 95 to 98% of this book is actually feasible. And that was Andy Weir's mission statement for this book. He wanted to be as realistic as possible. And as fantastical as it is, he wanted it to be grounded in actual science. And I applause to him for that, because that's a hard thing to do. Like, that's
really hard. Yeah.
You're supposed to take creative liberty with books and be like, who the fuck cares if this is feasible or not? He cared. And actually went out of his way to make sure that as much of it was realistic as it could possibly be.
Yeah. And that's what I love about this book too. It's like how close he could get to it, and then plus, the writing just comical and makes light of dark situations, but at the same time it being really dark. The
banter between the crew in the book and in the movie is played out so well. Yeah. Once I saw Donald Glover in the movie, I was like, oh, nobody could play this character but Donald Glover. Like, it was like perfect casting for everybody. And like, I know we're talking about the book, but it's the closest thing to perfection as you're going to get from a novel adaptation to a movie, man.
Yeah, because there's another book here that did in my list that did a really good job of portraying the book to movie.
Right. And, other than Gone Girl, because you said Gone Girl did a pretty good job too. More,
yeah.
Okay.
Because Gone Girl was really done too, but they did change.
I just remembered the other.
Yeah, they changed a little bit of in Gone Girl though for that. But yeah, with The Martian, like, it was pretty much 1-to-1 nearly, given some like time differences and things like that, and like this trek from the way he talks about leaving the Hab and moving all the way across the Schiaparelli crater. Yeah. Like, that took a long time, and they kind of, like, of course, for a movie they rushed through it. But there's so much more that happens in between that the book talks about, which is fantastic.
So good.
So highly recommend the book.
I'm glad that we have similar books on the list, and my number 3 is something you've already talked about. And it's the Magic 2.0 series. The entire fucking... I finished the series. So
I still have not.
The book Off to Be the Wizard is in a series of books called Magic 2.0. And it's Scott Meyer, and it's, like I said, a guy discovers that the universe is governed by a binary file that he can alter at his whim. The audiobooks for this series are fantastic. And I know that's the way you consume them. Yeah. And like, so the wizard that becomes his mentor.
Luke Daniels does the voices for everything on the narration of the book.
Okay. So the wizard that becomes his mentor Every time he launches into that voice, I just hear John Cleese, and I'm like, John Cleese would be perfect in a movie adaptation of this as that guy. And then there's like, and they all come from different eras. Like that guy is like from the 60s. Martin is from, I think, the 2000s. They've got guys from the 90s, guys from the 80s. They've got an older guy from the 80s, 70s, or that was in the military. Like, so like there's a whole bunch of different characters. There's a female that you come across in the books that Martin falls in love with in the Middle Ages, because of course he does. The second book deals into female wizards. They're not witches, they're female wizards.
Yeah.
And what they did and what they've built, and why they're separated from the male ones. And it's so good, and it gets to a point at the end where the main character in this book, the last book, he's got kids, and the last book is about his kids, and it's so friggin' good, man. And the villains that they have in the books are so well done. Some of them come back, some of them don't, but the villains that they end up with in these books are fantastic. And yeah, I guess if I were forced to choose one, it would be Off to Be the Wizard, because it is the first one in the series and the one I identify with the most and the one I've read the most. But this entire series of 6 books is so freaking good and so well written. And like, even when it was done, I want more from this world and from these characters. But Scott Meyer is taking a big break from.
Well deserved.
He said it's not over.
Oh.
It's the chapters are not closed, but it's done for now. He doesn't know where else to go with it, but he never wants to close the door on revisiting this world and these characters, which makes me happy.
It's a fantastic world once you get into it. Like, there's just so much to it.
They became, the first one, it was like just a Kindle single, and then it ended up getting published, but they became so popular as audiobooks that the last 3 books launched on Audible as audiobooks first for an entire year before they put out the written books. That's how popular they got on Audible, which is fantastic. I love it.
The narrator's fantastic. I love the narrator.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I could have put the whole series, because I haven't read them all.
Yeah.
I've read the last 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're very good.
I'm sure they are. Yeah. I have them. I just haven't read them.
5 deals with a little bit of time paradox stuff, and then 6 fleshes that out, and it's late. Obviously, in the future, he's got kids. It's really good. Really good shit. So Magic 2.0 by Scott Meyer. If you haven't read these books, please do yourself a favor and go do it.
I always read the first one.
Because, I read that first one, and I was like, I wish I would have read this when I was an early teenager.
Like, what would you cross it with? Like I think it's kind of like The Matrix meets something, right?
Yeah, it's like The Matrix meets Fanboys.
Yeah.
It's like the Matrix. It's like the tone of Fanboys, but with like
the Matrix.
Yeah.
Speaking of Fanboys, I show that movie to my friends who have never seen it, who are also big geeks like me. And they loved it. They thought it was funny just because.
Written by Ernest Cline, by the way.
Fanboys?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Written by Ernest Cline.
Oh. But yeah, they enjoyed it, which of course I knew they would, because Star Wars fans. But I just thought it was funny that I'd never seen it before. But anyways.
So that's it. Magic 2.0 by Scott Meyer. 2? So you're number 2.
All right, my number 2 is a pretty good book. It's not based on a movie or anything like that. It's just a straight up book. This movie actually came out on my birthday on July 11th, 2017.
Ooh.
Basically kind of like a coming of age type of book about this kid in high school who's on the spectrum, who ends up being friends with one of the popular girl in school. Because the popular girl in school had something traumatic happen. Her dad died in a car crash. All of her friends. And then, kind of like with the narrative, because again, audiobook. We're getting both David's perspective, the kid, and then you're also getting Kit's perspective, the girl on the book.
Okay.
You hear David, we're reading David's listening to David's mind saying, this is happening, this happened. Oh, Kit's one of the popular people. She, never talks to me. She's in her own world, but her dad did die, And then he mentions like he's looking at her, and then it switches. The next chapter is her, going through her day, going through the cafeteria, and then notices David, and she decides to go sit with David, and like you'll get her perspective of it. So you're getting both perspectives.
That's cool. I love when books do that.
Which I love.
And then a book right now that's doing that. So.
Oh yeah. I love that. I love that a lot. And like the voice acting in it is also, again, her voice narration is great. But so yeah, Kit gets David to help her kind of like
stop you for a second.
Yeah.
You still have not said the title of the book.
I did not, didn't I?
No. I just want to make sure you get that out there. Sorry.
What to Say Next.
Okay, What to Say Next.
What to Say Next.
All
right. What to Say Next by Julia Buxbaum.
Because the whole time you're talking, I'm like, did I just fucking block it out? And Rick said it, but I don't think you did.
I didn't.
Yes,
I didn't.
okay.
What to Say Next. There'll be a picture here of it too. Anyways. But yeah, because Kit kind of like gets David to help her figure out why her dad died in that car accident, because she just wants to know why, and like she's slowly starting to become like disconnected from her popular group, because she's hanging out now with the weird kid. And he basically tries to help her understand, and of course, the more they spend time together, the more they, she kind of like likes him and develop feelings and all that. But like, it's not necessarily like it's not a love story. It's more like the dynamic between these two opposites, And it's a really, really good book. I liked it a lot, especially like with the outcome of it, and like the also mystery of like, like her trying to figure out why her dad died, how her dad died, and trying to like get closure basically.
Okay.
So
sounds really interesting. What to Say Next? Huh?
What to Say Next?
I might have to check that out.
Yeah, David, he's on the spectrum, so it's like everything he says is blunt and straightforward.
Okay.
So like, I hate to use this, but like think of like the Sheldon character.
Right.
Yeah. I know.
I get it.
But no, what think of what's his name from Atypical? Okay. I guess more.
What's that other one? The Good Doctor?
Sam, or The Good Doctor as well too. More Sam from Atypical, I would say.
I still need to watch that, but I get it.
Fantastic show.
Yeah.
But yeah, What to Say Next? And yeah, it's narrated by two people.
My number 2 is another series, which I wrote this list and then found out that there is a new book coming out in the series. I think by the time this goes up, it'll be out. Mm-hmm. And it's The Inheritance Cycle, written by Christopher Paolini. So that's Aragon, Eldest, Brissinger, and Inheritance. Those are the 4 books, the main books in the series.
I should have guessed this. I know how much you like those series, or that series.
So, Rick, you just had a number 2 that doesn't have anything based on it. There was a very shitty movie based on the first book, Aragon. So I saw my brother got me into this series. So shout out to Ben. He doesn't watch this stuff though, but whatever.
How's Ben?
He's doing great. He's doing good.
I thought about him the other day.
Yeah. He was like, "Oh, you got to read these books. You got to read these books." And at the time, he had only read Aragon and part of the second book, which is called Eldest. And I go, "Oh, okay." And that was the year I had got the Kindle, which was like 2012 maybe, 2011, 2012, when the Kindle Fire first came out. And so I got that for Christmas that year. And then that was the first thing I bought, was a book compilation of the first 3 books, because at the time we thought it was over with the 3rd book, Brissinger, and we didn't know there was a 4th book coming. And so I read through those 3 books, like just powered through, and it makes it easier when it's like all the books in one, even though it's like 2,500 pages or whatever. It's like it makes it easier to read because it's all there for you already. And I read through those books, and I was like, and I remember telling Ben, I was like, this is a fact of the book. And he's like, how do you know? And I go, I can tell. I know what, and I don't want to say what it is because it's a very cool plot twist in the book. I I go, this is a thing. And he's like, no way. And I was like, yes. And then I get to that point. I'm like, I told you I was right. And then he got mad at me and he's never finished reading the series since. But yeah, they made a really bad movie about the first one. So when I saw the movie, I hadn't read the books yet. And I was like, Ben said this movie's terrible. It's not that bad. And then I read the book. And I was like, this movie fucking sucks. But it's one of those things that standalone, it's not terrible, you know?
Like, don't read the books, just watch the movie.
Right. But then when you read the book, it's like, wow, this movie is awful. There's some good things in the book. Some of the casting is good. But the book,
Is it Sean Connery in them?
No.
No, it's not Sean Connery.
No. Jeremy Irons, I think, is in that.
Yeah.
And Joss Stone is actually in it. The singer? Yeah. Anyway, we're here to talk about the fucking shitty movie.
No.
These books, The Inheritance Cycle, it's about the history of dragon riders. And the book opens with a kid finding a dragon egg that everybody had thought all the dragon eggs had been destroyed. There was only one dragon rider and one egg left. Or one dragon and rider left. And he's like the king of this town, of this area, and he's a tyrant and this and that. And this kid ends up finding a dragon egg, and you get chosen by your dragon, and he's chosen by this dragon to be the rider for the dragon. And it's this awesome series about finding more eggs and finding more dragons and more dragon riders and taking out this fucking tyrannical king. And it's so fucking good, man. Like, and I'm not a huge fantasy, high fantasy book guy, but these books are so well written and so well done, especially the first one. So, the story goes is that Christopher Paolini wrote the first book while he was in high school.
Oh.
And it didn't get, then they self-published it, and and then it ends up getting published later. But I've never seen or read the original self-published version of the book. But yeah, so like, story goes, he wrote it when he was 14, 15, 16 years old. And then it got picked up and published when he was 18 or 19. And now he's obviously older now, and got older as he wrote these books. But you can, when you read that first book, it definitely is written by a kid who is just now being taught how like creative writing works. It's a lot of
progress.
A lot of really intricate detail that you don't really need, but when you first start doing creative writing, your teachers always tell you, show, not tell. Give all the detail and description of a scene so that your reader can visualize it. And there's a lot of that in the first book. But then as he gets older and his writing style, he finds his writing style, they get better and better and better. Not necessarily less detail, but more important detail. And instead of
he honed his craft, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
The first book, he'll describe the temperature and the smell of the air and the sound of the leaves falling and the color of the trees. And it's like all this shit that really does set a scene that's kind of unnecessary. But then when you get later in the books, it's him telling the important feelings of the stuff going on around him rather than the stuff going on around him.
More descriptive,
Yeah. So it's a really cool series of books to read because you can read his progression as a writer.
That's pretty awesome. I didn't know that. I know you talking about the Aragon books.
So the book that's coming out now, or that should be out by the time you read this, I think it's actually out now by the time we're recording this, is about another character from this inheritance cycle. But it's not like he could have easily done like, oh, this same story I already wrote from this guy's perspective, but instead it's his story after the events of the last 4 books. So it's this character's story after. But he wasn't the main character. I don't want to say who he was. Cause...
As you were describing it, I'm almost kind of thinking like, sounds familiar. It sounds like a little bit like How to Train Your Dragon.
Kinda, yeah.
Which kind of makes me interested now.
Yeah, it's very good.
I love those movies.
Yeah, the books are so good. So I wholeheartedly recommend all 4 books in the Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. The dude turned into a fantastic writer. I recently purchased a book of his that's in a different series called The Fractal Universe.
Oh.
And they're science fiction books. And I was going to start reading that recently after I finished a book. I read the Angry Video Game Nerd autobiography, which is a must read. You guys got to read that. It's fantastic. As now somebody who's not a fan necessarily of the guy's content, it's a very well written book. But anyway, so I was looking for books, and it's like, oh, the Fractal Universe series by Christopher Paolini. I was like, oh shit, he wrote other books, and so I bought it because it was $2.99 on sale. Because I know he's got a new book coming out in the Inheritance Cycle, so his other books are kind of discounted right now. And I was gonna start reading it, but it's 880 pages, and I was like, I can't start that right now. I gotta go into something different. So, but yeah, Christopher Paolini is a hell of a writer.
What's your number 2?
Yeah, it's my number 2. I know what your number 1 is. So
Okay. Before we got that, when you do listen to the audio versions, what speed do you read it at?
It depends. I never ever go higher than 1.5. I usually sit around 1.25 because that kind of it leaves enough of the pauses, but cuts out a lot of the really long ones that are unnecessary.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a couple of books, like The Martian, the way it's read, that one I get at 1.5. But even that sometimes, like, it's 1.25 is usually where I listen to it.
Here's the funny thing about me. I listen to it at just regular.
So I've done that before,
and
too.
then when I reread them, I go higher.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I do like 1.25, usually 1.5.
1.25 is kind of where I stop, because when you get to 1.5, that's when the reading starts to sound like this, and there's no pauses, and it's this and that, and blah blah blah.
But I already know what's happening,
right.
So like I kind of let that happen.
But at 1.25, it's kind of like the perfect middle ground.
It is the perfect middle ground, though,
for a lot of books. But yeah, 1.25 is where I usually listen to it.
I was just wondering. Yeah. All right. So my number 1, as you already know, is it was a book. It was a movie. It's called The Great Gatsby.
No.
It's The Perks of Being a Wallflower, of course.
Yeah.
It's my all-time favorite book, my all-time favorite movie. If you haven't watched it, go watch. Or if you haven't read it, go read it. Now, like we were talking about with The Martian, it's a perfect adaptation from book to film. And the deleted scenes are parts of the book that just didn't make it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Into the movie. So technically, if you put those deleted scenes in there, you're really only missing just a few parts in that book.
That's awesome.
But with the book, like it's hard to pick, but like I love the book a lot because there's so much more detail in the book. Yeah. You go deeper into the history of I said the name of the book, right? Perks of Being a Wallflower. Yeah.
Who's the writer?
Stephen Chbosky.
Thank you.
But yeah, with the book, like it just who's it narrated by? Noah Galvin. He does a really good job of narrating it. Like it's almost kind of close to kind of sounding like of the actor who plays Logan Lerman. But yeah, the book just goes so much more detail into the school year, into the history of his like trying to make friends, trying to fit in, just trying to like survive high school. Yeah. Basically. And ended up making friends that are older than him. They're seniors and he's a freshman, and just like having, those people to lean on, and being part of the island of misfit toys, as they say, like no one really cares about them. And he finds his way, and like, it's probably one of the best, in my opinion, coming of age stories I've ever read. Also, with it being set in the 90s, like I'd say like early mid 90s. Okay.
So it's perfect time.
So it's like the perfect time, and the music, not just in the movie, but in the book too. He goes off of a list. Like they list the songs of like of the mixtape that he made. For her.
That's really cool.
And like these are the songs, and then he just starts to name them off, and you can find them like in Spotify in a list or in YouTube on a list, and listen to what song he's talking about. And it's just so detailed, so well crafted, and like this is like one book that I'm like related to on like nearly 90% of any movie or book I've ever read. I highly recommend it. It's good. Read it.
Is it the Press Fest?
It is.
Yeah, okay.
It is the press fest,
All
but
right.
there's some there's good things in it.
Yeah.
It's not like
No,
full,
I hear you.
It's
I
not
hear you.
full depressed fest. It's not.
Listen, it's Rick's number one. If you've been around here any,
If you know me,
it's a Rick book.
There you go. If you know me, yes.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of heart into this as well.
Oh
too.
yeah. I don't mean that as like
No, I know.
pejorative either. I mean that as like that's the way we categorize some of Rick's things.
It basically brings you back to the time of, trying to fit in, or just trying to find your way in high school, and the second part of meeting. He did find his people, but they're already leaving high school, so it's sad, but at the same time, he kind of gets a glimpse of optimism,
right?
Because of them.
Very cool.
Heavy topics, though, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot of trigger warnings in there. But it's good.
Okay.
But it's really good.
That's what I've been meaning to buy and read, but every time we talk about it, I'm like, it's like a depressed.
People always say the book's better than the movie.
Yeah.
Or the movie
better
than the book. With this, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
They're both good. If you say I want to read the book, but I watched the movie, you're good.
Okay. Very cool.
Watch the deleted scenes if you just want more.
It's Perks of Being a Wallflower. That's your number one. All right. You probably have figured out what my number one is if you're thinking about it at all. My number one favorite book of all time as of the making of this list is Ready Player One.
I figured. You haven't mentioned that.
Yeah. If I was to make a list of my top 5 favorite books where I took out my parameter of I don't want books written by the same author in my top 5, 3 of these books could easily be Ernest Cline books. I love Ready Player One. I love Armada, and it's controversial, but I really loved Ready Player Two. I think it's a very, very good sequel. But Ready Player One is similar to Armada. I feel like was written just for me. I feel like he was like, there's this dude, man, named Mike, and he's really gonna love this book if I write it. And that's kind of what it's like. It's 80s nostalgia and 90s nostalgia and video games and movies and books, and it's all the shit, everything that he goes out of his way to mention in depth. I'm like, oh yes, that's right for me. War games, that's to me, that's me. One of the characters and their love for Prince, oh, that's me. Yeah, being an awkward guy, that's me. It's so fantastic, and the movie adaptation of the book, I know a lot of people were disappointed by it because they were expecting a retelling of the book, but because of my deep love of the book, I followed the production of the movie from square one to where him and Spielberg sat down and said, look, we are not doing a retelling of the book, but what we are really aiming for is to nail the vibe of the book and the team up aspect of the book and the disconnect every once in a while aspect of the book and the find your friends and find your chosen family. They wanted to nail the essence of the book without retelling the story. And I'm no more qualified than anybody else, but I, as someone who loves the book and should probably be predisposed to hating the adaptation of the movie because of things they've changed and the different properties and this and that, I love the movie just as much as I love the book for different reasons. They're two different things that can stand on their own. If you're unaware, Ready Player One is about a kid who lives in the future, and it's all immersive virtual reality, how you do your work and school and everything.
The metaverse.
Basically. Yeah. I remember when Microsoft showed off HoloLens.
Yeah.
I was like, this is fucking Ready Player One coming to life. And now Metaverse is trying to do that. And, with their standalone, the Oculus Quest headsets or Metaverse Quest headsets, they're getting there, man. They're getting there. But yeah, it's a virtual reality immersive thing, and it's about a kid who wins this. it's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
It is, yeah.
But with 80s nostalgia and video games, to the point where like they really almost had Gene Wilder play, like they wanted him to play that character, but they're like, no, we can't do that, because yes, this character is based on that, but we can't do that. Like it would have been perfect, but yeah. So it's a scavenger hunt contest, and the winner of this scavenger hunt gets control of the Oasis, which is this online metaverse style world that this game creator created. He passes away and has this Easter egg hunt, and it's so good, and it hits a lot of really cool notes where, you know, making unlikely friends and then teaming up with these friends because you don't want this gross corporation to win this thing, and everybody kind of rallying behind them as the underdogs and then becoming the man, like damn the man, but now you're the man kind of thing. And it's so fantastically written, man. And I know there was a slight pushback and like almost cancel culture thing with Ernest Cline, not recently. It was like one of the first times I heard the term cancel culture was about this Ernest Cline thing, and it's not even worth mentioning other than the fact that it was over some stupid shit that shouldn't have. That it wasn't even anything negative that he said. It was over another book he read, or another book he wrote that was poetry. It's called The Importance of Being Earnest, which is similar to the play, but it's a book of his poetry, and there was one poem in particular that people took umbrage with. That I think if it were to come out now, people would be all about it. But yeah,
poetry is definitely its own thing.
Yeah,
like it's its own.
You don't get to tell artists
controversial.
You don't get to tell artists
topic,
how to art,
depending how you see it. That's the point of art.
But in the second book, in Ready Player, even in Armada and Ready Player 2, he kind of, I won't say goes out of his way, but those books got a lot of flack because now he's too woke or whatever, and it's like, get the fuck out of here. Either way, Ready Player One is a fantastic book about living in a virtual world, and it's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but with technology, and it's really one of the coolest. It's like, yeah, I've heard this story before, but this is like the coolest take on a story I've heard before that I've ever read.
It's that thing where we've talked about many times in the other podcasts where we say, don't just reboot it, just make it something new. And that's basically what Ready Player One is. The book is, like you said, Willy Wonka, but it's something new. It's different. It's in the same
his spin on
story,
Willy Wonka story.
But yeah, it's different. It just has its different spin on it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much what we always say. Like, don't just make a remake, make something else that's similar, but with its own twist. And that's I see that with Ready Player One.
So one of my favorite things about this book, the physical print of this book, and even the first edition of the paperback.
I have like 2 of the books.
I have hardcover and a paperback.
I have 2 paperbacks, I'm pretty sure.
Is that in the original edition of the book that was released, he hid an Easter egg. He hid a scavenger hunt in his book that nobody knew about for a while. And similar to the way the book plays out, in real life, people started to realize that, something I thought was a printing error is happening quite regularly in this book. So it's like there's a dash in the first letters of the first words of every chapter. And like at first it's like, the first time you see it, it looks like a printing error. But then the way the chapter numbers are written is kind of digitized. So you would think, maybe it's just a continuation of this thing. But it's not. It's actually a scavenger hunt inside the book. And
I don't remember this.
It ends up being a link, a web URL at the end. And he actually had and built a DeLorean out and gave it away with this scavenger hunt. That's was in
awesome.
Right?
I don't remember this.
How fucking cool is that? Like, you talk about metaverse and being meta, and like that shit right there, man. Like, woo!
So
cool. But yeah, he built in a fucking scavenger hunt just like his book in the book, and ended up giving away his DeLorean. And it was the DeLorean that he was driving to the book signings and
that's
the
awesome.
press stuff. Yeah. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah. That's awesome.
So
I love when books and media do like those scavenger hunts, ARGs, as they're sometimes called, where you know, if you look good, close enough, like there's something there.
Yeah. I think it's great that it just looks like a printing error. And then it looks like, oh no, it's just the theme of the book. And then somebody was like, wait a minute. And put it all together, you know? How cool is that?
That's pretty damn cool.
So that's my favorite book. I kind of jokingly said my favorite book of all time as the writing of this list, but I don't think that's the book I've read the most in my life. And it's only been around for like 12 years, 13 years or something like that. It's the book I've read the most. Probably read it 7 or 8 times. And the way this similar to the Magic 2.0 books and the other books I mentioned on this list, or The Martian, where I'll read a couple chapters and then I'll listen to the audiobook. Will Wheaton reads the audiobook.
Yeah.
And it's fucking fantastic. I haven't listened to the audiobook of Ready Player 2 yet, which is also read by Will Wheaton. And he got fucking Rosario Dawson to read Armada, which I haven't listened to yet either, but I really want to.
I got Dawson. Somewhat. I think I got like 4 chapters of it,
and like like she would be perfect to play that character in Armada if they made a movie about it. But yeah, so yeah, just like these books, man. Ready Player One specifically is like Will Wheaton does such a great job of reading the book, and he's even referenced in the books.
That's funny.
And he has to read his own name, which is pretty funny.
I think I have the audiobook too.
But yeah, that's one of those books where I'll read 4 or 5 chapters and then I'll listen to them. Then I'll read them and listen to them. The movie is another thing that I like to watch a lot. I remember my son, who's here with us right now as our studio audience member, was homesick from school one day. And I put on Ready Player One for him. And he fell in love with the movie. And now, anytime he's homesick, quotations from school, it's a movie he wants to watch. Because he loved that movie when I had him watch it. So, yeah, I love being able to pass things on like that. Because the movie I used to watch when I was homesick from school was The Karate Kid. And that's another one I had him watch when he was homesick once, was Karate Kid, and he loved that movie also. So that makes me happy. It warms my heart. My kids, they love Karate Kid, they love Back to the Future, and now they love Ready Player One. And it's just like, it's very rare, especially now, where younger generations will look back fondly on older stuff, because it's hard now to look back on older stuff because writing styles were different, technology for CG was different, storytelling in movies and TV shows and cartoons, animation was different. So a lot of younger generations now don't have the appreciation for the stuff that paved the way unless you kind of ease them into it. And I feel fortunate that my kids are very appreciative of stuff that I liked growing up as well, without having to like force it down their throats, you know? And Ready Player One, now that my son, he's just turned 13 and I own it digitally and his Kindle is logged into my account, I would really love for him to read the book, because I think he would love it, because it's about video games and virtual reality and a lot of stuff that's pretty important to kids now. That's
Did you read off?
No, he hasn't, but okay. I think he would love it.
Yeah,
I think he would love it. Yeah.
Because I was thinking of giving I was buying my nephew off to be the wizard, because like, man, he might like this, because he kind of likes like the fantasy stuff too. Like he's really big into Magic the Gathering type of art stuff, and I think that might kind of similar to what I think.
I think the only
he really loves the Percy Jackson books.
Yeah, Michael's only been through the Lightning Thief, and that was when he was younger. Because when he was younger, they had a reading log where your parent had to read to you 30 minutes a night. And we got through the first 4 Harry Potter books that way, and the first Percy Jackson book that way. And he really liked Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. But I want him, now that he's older, to read these on his own, because I think it's a completely different experience when you read it yourself.
Yeah.
But he liked Percy Jackson, and he likes the Harry Potter books. So if you're, I really feel like he would like Off to Be the Wizard. At least the idea, some of the nostalgia stuff might just go right over his head. But I do like that they have built-in characters where, like, I have no idea what these people are fucking talking about, which kind of would help a reader who doesn't have any idea what they're talking about, you know? But yeah. I love talking about books. I love reading. And I think
Yeah.
down the line, like we talked about doing like a SSWL book club thing.
Yeah, we
At
did
one
for a
point.
little bit. Yeah.
But then, like, we don't read at the same pace or at the same time or get through books at the same time. Because I think originally, a first book I wanted to do was Off to Be the Wizard. And it was just one of those ones that you went through slowly because you were doing audiobook and you were only listening to it on your commute to work.
Yeah.
And I fucking blasted through reading that book. But yeah, I don't know if I'd want to do like a book club thing, but I would definitely love to talk about books that we've both read, or maybe even books that only one of us have read, where it's more of like a tell me why you like this book so much, like sell it to me kind of style of episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun.
I think too what's funny, at least between my taste in books and your taste in books, is that mine's kind of like all over the place in a sense. Yeah, mine's more like, okay, so like not just the books that I mentioned there, but like I'm also a big fan of entertainment. So like a lot of books that I read too are like actor biographies, like Jennifer Fisher's biography book. I read that. I read the Nerdist book, Disaster Artist, the Simon Pegg's book, Felicia Day's book. And then they also get into the tech side, like No Place to Hide.
Yeah.
Ghost in the Wires, which is Kevin Mitnick's book.
Oh shit.
Yeah, may he rest in peace.
Yeah, that's just recent.
That one, that hit me, man. I was like, damn. But yeah, mine's kind of all over the place. And then every once in a while, like I didn't finish it yet, but I have some Star Wars books.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I
over the
think
place.
I think our taste in books are like, there was a Venn diagram of them. We have a lot over here, but there's also a lot that cross over for us.
Yeah.
Especially genre and style kind of things. But yeah, I think that could be a fun thing to do on this show. But I think that'll do it for this episode.
Yeah.
We got through our list.
Yeah, let us know if you've read any of these books. If you enjoy any of these books or movies, let us know down below.
Yeah, let us know what your favorite books are in the comments if you have any.
Which ones you have read of ours, and will you read them? Yeah.
Like I said, I just recently finished the Angry Video Game Nerd autobiography. It's really good, man. It's like I said, as somebody who understands he was ahead of his time and appreciates the content he was making in 2006 when nobody was really doing that. Now everybody does that. Everybody's got a hot take about everything. The difference is he was in character. A lot of people now are trying to be not in character. Like, I'm just angry all the fucking time. And it's like, nah, it's just a character here. But after reading that book, I have like a whole new appreciation for him. And I've actually been going back and watching some of those old seasons of his show because like, I can totally appreciate, like I said, what he did for a genre of video on YouTube and the internet. But even if it's not my thing, I can find things to appreciate about it. But he's very candid about his life and like ups and downs that happened in college and high school and growing up and being in special ed classes and like just it's really, really well done, really well written. And I know he reads it also, and that's something I would kind of like to get the audiobook. To listen to him read it. That'd be cool. I'm reading right now Shift, which is the second book in a series called the Silo series. The first one was Wool, and they made a TV show about that on Apple Plus. I haven't watched it yet, but I just started reading the second book in that series. So I'm constantly reading. I'm constantly trying to read and stimulate that side of my brain. So we might have to come back and do more episodes about books.
Yeah. Silo was definitely one I remember you telling me about that you something I should read. Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah. Well, thanks for coming by. Let us know what your books are, your top favorite books, and so we can have that discussion down there.
Yep.
And then, of course, we would like to thank, of course, for this wonderful music.
No Taxes, Nigel Bravo, Stoat Krow Komedy everywhere. Crow with a K, comedy with a K. Check him out. Dude's super awesome, makes rad music.
Yep, all the links will be down below, so you can check them out. And until next time.
Peace out, y'all.